Hello there, creeps. You've seen them before, but did you know they have hitboxes? You do? Okay, well, did you know they also have collision boxes? Have you seen those little circles around the creeps? Well, by placing your collision box in front of the creeps, you essentially create a barrier which slows their movement. As everyone who has ever played mid in their lifetime knows, the plan at the start of the game looks roughly like this. Wait for creeps, block creeps, you have the high ground, win. Something kinda like that at least. Well, at some point you'll reach a point where you can't get more blocking in under the short duration between your tier 3 tower and the river. But what if you extend the time you have to block the creeps? Well, without any magic tricks, the creeps will almost always split into two separate groups, and there is no realistic way to block both sides at the same time. Of course, you know, that's not an issue for me because I'm a fucking natural at it, but for the argument's sake, let's say you, like everyone else, is not able to do this. Well, there is actually an unintuitive way to manipulate RNG in such a way that the creeps line up in a perfect row for you to block. Well, thanks to Valve's spaghetti code, standing roughly within this circle ellipse thing right here will cause the creeps to choose to go to the left side of the tower for whatever reason. I personally think it has something to do with the pathfinding, like they are programmed to take the shortest route to the river, and if they see an obstacle, they choose another path. I don't know, that's probably the reason, who knows. So, here comes the tricky part. It doesn't work 100% of the time, even with perfect technique. Some people claim to be able to get it 80% of the time, others once every 10 tries or so. Well, what is the most optimal way to get the best odds then, and how do you influence it? Let's find out. So, first of all, we need to set a baseline. With no hero anywhere near the creep's pathfinding, what happens? Well, using some console commands, I spawned 200 creep waves and wrote down how the creeps moved. So, let's talk about the possible scenarios. 1 melee creep going top, 2 melee creeps going top, 3 melee creeps going top, 1 melee and 1 ranged creep going top, 2 melee and 1 ranged creep going top, and finally the dream scenario, 3 melee and 1 ranged going top. So, what are the results? Well, like you'd expect, it's fairly random. Most common scenario by far is having only 1 melee creep going top, which occurs roughly 28% of the time. The desired scenario, and the most rare one, having all the creeps going top, happens only roughly 7% of the time. This means that if you're only able to get the pixel block like once every 10 attempts or so, you're most likely not doing anything at all, and it's just random, and you might as well just stand wherever you want. Okay, but let's get to the interesting part. First of all, can the hero you play influence the creeps in any way? Maybe. I mean, probably. There are a couple of heroes who have significantly smaller collision boxes, which might influence the creeps. But, I don't know, and honestly, I'll leave that up for grabs if anyone else wants to experiment it. I don't really care too much about that. So, let's just assume you're playing a normally sized hero, and let's add it into the mix. Using an inbuilt grid to line up my hero consistently, I tried out standing roughly within the area I personally do, and where I've seen the most professional players stand, and I logged the creep's movement once again. The results are very clear. There were no cases with 1 melee creep or 1 melee and 1 range creep going top, which both were very common with no hero involved. The two most rare scenarios without a hero, 3 melee creeps going top and 3 melee 1 range going top, are actually the most common scenarios if you have a hero nearby. The chance for perfect creep movement increases from roughly 7% to around 30%. Now you might think, okay, 30%, that's pretty good, but it's nowhere near to the 80% that we're looking for. Well, do you know what I think? I think people are lying. Okay, lying might be a bit too extreme, but I think a lot of people have a self-serving bias. where they heavily overestimate their ability, even, you know, when it's completely luck based. Okay, well, let's not jump to any conclusions too fast here. Maybe the spot I was standing in is actually suboptimal, where maybe I should go somewhere else. Well, I repeated the experiment, but moved around to different spots, somewhere near the tower, and I can with pretty decent certainty confirm that it's binary. Either you get the block or you don't. I try to find and ask people who claim to be able to do the block more than 50% of the time, but you know, suddenly people became very quiet. If you have some, you know, secret method, feel free to prove me wrong. But I mean, seeing as the people who play this game professionally don't get the block more than 50% either, I highly doubt it's possible. Well, talking about the pros, do they use the Pixelblock? The short answer, yes. I looked at some recent pro games from the Animator and ESL1 Summer League, and looked at a couple of professional good mid players, and I noticed that every single person attempted to do the Pixelblock at least once, if they had the time. Except for this one guy, but we'll get to that later. Since the bounties changed, the mid has some more responsibility with helping around the runes at 0-0, which means you might not always have time to get back in position to Pixelblock. But like I mentioned, there was one person who I never saw Pixelblock, and that is Topson. But I don't know, maybe he just plays heroes who are more impact at runes, and thus, you know, gets more value from that than being at the creeps 1-2 seconds earlier. Who knows? If you have any other theories, just let me know. But wait, do you even want to block harder? What happens if, you know, the enemy doesn't block at all? You don't want the creep to go under your tower at the start, that would be horrible. Actually, I'll leave that discussion up for someone else. Anyways, thanks a lot for watching. Bye bye.